On a warm, quiet Sunday morning in Jupiter, Florida, the stillness was shattered by a phone call to the local police. A neighbor, concerned after a missed golf game and no return calls, had entered the home of 68-year-old businessman Lanny Horwitz and discovered a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Lanny was lying in his bathroom, slumped against the wall, a pool of dark blood spreading slowly across the tiled floor. A single bullet hole marked his temple, and a revolver rested loosely near his hand. At first glance, it appeared to be a suicide. The house was undisturbed. The front door was unlocked. No signs of forced entry. No screams, no struggle. But something about the scene didn't sit right with the first responders. Officers secured the home and began taking photographs, measuring trajectories, and documenting everything. For a man with no history of depression and no note left behind, the suicide theory quickly began to unravel. When forensics examined the revolver, they made an unsettling discovery. It had no usable fingerprints. Not even Lanny's. The weapon had been wiped clean, yet placed close enough to appear as if it had fallen from his grasp. That small detail shifted the investigation from tragic to suspicious. Lanny Horwitz wasn't just any retiree. He was a well-known figure in the South Florida business world. Years ago, he built a successful company specializing in medical equipment, later selling it for millions. He lived comfortably in a gated community, frequently hosting fundraisers and social events. His reputation was polished, his circle tight, and his daily routine rigid. Every Sunday morning, he played golf at the local country club. When he didn't show up that day, his friend drove over, entered through the unlocked door, and walked straight into a nightmare. Further investigation into the house revealed that all the indoor security cameras had mysteriously stopped recording the night before. Technicians confirmed the system had been shut down manually at around 1:45 a.m. Whoever had done it had known the code and how to bypass the backup system. This was not the work of a panicked intruder. It was someone who had planned their steps carefully. Lanny's bedroom showed no sign of struggle. His clothes were neatly folded on a chair. His reading glasses rested on the nightstand, next to a half-read novel. He had brushed his teeth, as shown by the wet toothbrush in the sink. Everything pointed to a man who had been ready to sleep, until something went horribly wrong. Outside, detectives canvassed the neighbors. No one had heard a gunshot, though one person mentioned seeing a black SUV parked near the Horwitz home in the early morning hours. Unfortunately, no license plate was visible, and the sighting was vague. With little to go on, investigators turned their attention inward, to those closest to the victim. That was when they learned that Lanny hadn't been living alone. In fact, someone else had been sleeping just down the hall the night he died, someone with deep ties to his past, and even deeper motives that had yet to be uncovered. Living in the guest room at the time of Lanny Horwitz's death was his ex-wife, Donna Horwitz, a detail that immediately drew the attention of investigators. Donna told the police she had moved in temporarily while recovering from a recent illness. She claimed that despite their divorce over a decade ago, she and Lanny had remained on friendly terms. Her presence in the house during the murder transformed her from a curious footnote into a person of interest. Donna appeared composed, dressed in a pressed blouse and slacks, and calmly recounted her version of the morning. According to her, she had taken a walk around the neighborhood before sunrise, something she said helped her clear her mind. When she returned, she claimed she discovered Lanny's body and immediately called a neighbor for help. But inconsistencies in her story quickly emerged. Forensic analysis of the body revealed Lanny had died between 2:30 and 3 a.m., long before Donna claimed to have left the house. Her morning walk, supposedly around 7 a.m., couldn't account for a death that happened 4 hours earlier. Detectives began to piece together a timeline. Donna said she had gone to bed around midnight. She heard no gunshots, no movement. Yet when police questioned her about the security system, she was vague. She said she assumed Lanny had turned it off for some reason. Investigators knew better. The system had been disabled using a passcode, something only 3 people had access to: Lanny, the security company, and Donna herself. Further digging into Donna's recent activities uncovered another troubling clue. She had recently made several large cash withdrawals from a dormant joint account she shared with Lanny, amounts totaling over $40,000. When asked why, she claimed it was to repay personal debts. But no creditors were identified, and no documentation was provided. It became evident that Donna was hiding something. As police examined her past, another chilling revelation surfaced. Donna had been married twice before. Her second husband had died under circumstances that, while not overtly suspicious at the time, now raised serious questions. His death had been ruled an accident, a fall down the stairs in their home in Maryland. No charges were filed, and Donna inherited a sizable life insurance payout. But now, with another man dead under her roof, that case was quietly reopened. Family friends told detectives that Donna had always seemed emotionally unstable. They described her as controlling, possessive, and prone to jealousy. Some noted that she had never truly let go of Lanny, even after their divorce. She had often spoken about how he owed her more than she got from the settlement and how she felt discarded when he began dating again. Despite her calm demeanor, Donna's behavior in the days following the murder seemed strange. She didn't ask about funeral arrangements or speak with Lanny's close friends. Instead, she began making calls to lawyers, inquiring about estate rights and whether her living in the home at the time gave her any legal claims. Investigators now had a disturbing hypothesis. Donna had inserted herself back into Lanny's life not out of goodwill or recovery, but out of motive. And soon, they would uncover something that added fuel to that theory, something buried deep in Lanny's legal files that was about to change everything. As investigators continued to sift through Lanny Horwitz's personal documents, they came across something that shifted the case dramatically: a recently updated last will and testament. Just 3 weeks before his death, Lanny had met with his attorney to make significant changes. In the original version of his will, written years ago, Donna was named as the primary beneficiary. She stood to inherit the house, a sizable portion of his savings, and several valuable assets, including stocks and bonds. But in the updated version, nearly everything had been redirected to his only son, Matthew Horwitz. Matthew had been largely estranged from his father for over 5 years. The falling out, according to friends and family, stemmed from a failed business partnership in which Matthew had lost a considerable amount of money. Lanny, a meticulous businessman, had blamed his son's recklessness. They hadn't spoken much since. Yet, for reasons unknown to most, Lanny had chosen to forgive him shortly before his death and restore his inheritance. Detectives quickly reached out to Matthew, who was living in Boston. He appeared genuinely shocked by the news of his father's murder. He explained that while he and his father had gone through a rough patch, they had recently reconnected. Lanny had called him several times in the weeks leading up to his death, expressing regret and even suggesting that he visit Florida soon. Matthew hadn't made the trip yet, but those conversations had left him hopeful. When questioned about the will, he admitted that he had no idea his father had planned to leave him everything. As part of their standard protocol, investigators verified Matthew's alibi. Surveillance footage placed him in a Boston cafe at the time of the murder, and his phone records backed up his claim that he hadn't traveled in weeks. That eliminated him as a suspect, but not as a valuable source of insight. Matthew then provided something the police didn't have: a collection of old emails that Donna had sent to him years earlier. In them, she warned him to stay out of Lanny's affairs, implying that she still had influence over her ex-husband's finances. Her tone was bitter and possessive, hinting at jealousy over Lanny's dating life and frustration over being pushed out of his inner circle. Even more revealing was a message sent from Donna to Lanny's attorney just 6 weeks prior to the murder. In it, she casually inquired about the status of the will, asking whether any changes had been made and if she could still count on her portion of the estate. The attorney never replied, but the message itself was enough to raise alarms. It showed foreknowledge and concern, both dangerous ingredients when mixed with motive. The timing was too perfect. Donna had recently discovered she was being written out of Lanny's future. She had financial troubles, a questionable past, and now, a powerful reason to ensure the will never took effect. And if she wasn't going to inherit his fortune legally, investigators began to wonder whether she had chosen another method, one that left blood on the tiles and silence in the hallways. A week after the murder of Lanny Horwitz, just as the investigation seemed to be narrowing in on Donna as the primary suspect, an unexpected voice stepped forward with critical information. It came from someone who had known the Horwitz household well for over a decade: Maria Velasquez, the longtime cleaning lady. Quiet and observant, Maria had seen and heard more than most people realized. And now, what she remembered could not be ignored. Maria told detectives she had been at the Horwitz residence 2 days before Lanny's death. As she vacuumed the hallway upstairs, she overheard Donna on the phone, pacing back and forth in the guest room with the door cracked open. Donna's voice was tense and sharp. Maria couldn't make out the full conversation, but two phrases stuck in her mind: "Time is running out," and "You know what we agreed on." At the time, Maria assumed it was a personal dispute and chose to ignore it. But after hearing about Lanny's death, the memory returned with chilling clarity. The detectives pressed Maria for more. She mentioned seeing a man in the house around that same time, a young man Donna introduced as her nephew. Maria found this odd. In all the years she had worked there, Donna had never mentioned any family living nearby, much less someone who visited frequently. She described him as being in his early 30s, with a nervous, twitchy demeanor. He wore gloves even indoors and avoided eye contact. He only stayed for short periods, and Donna never allowed him to speak with Lanny, insisting he was there to help her with a private matter. With this new information, the investigation took a new turn. Detectives pulled traffic and security footage from nearby streets, looking for any vehicles entering or leaving the neighborhood during the night of the murder. At 2:06 a.m., a black SUV with tinted windows was captured driving toward the Horwitz home. It left at 3:14 a.m. The vehicle's license plate was partially visible in one frame, enough to track it to a local rental agency. The name on the rental agreement was Jake Pirelli. He had no known connection to Lanny Horwitz, but a background check revealed he had a criminal record for fraud, burglary, and weapons possession. More significantly, he had a shared history with Donna's adult son from a previous marriage. They had been arrested together years earlier for attempting to sell counterfeit checks and stolen IDs. Though they were both released with minimal sentencing, they had remained close, at least close enough for Jake to appear, unannounced, at Lanny's home days before the murder. Investigators subpoenaed Jake's phone records and found several calls exchanged with a prepaid number, one later linked to a burner phone recovered from Donna's car. The calls stopped the morning of the murder. Financial records showed a large withdrawal from Donna's account 2 days before Lanny was killed, money that was never accounted for in her statements to police. Each new detail added weight to the growing theory: Donna had not acted alone. She had brought in someone else, someone expendable, to do the unthinkable. But Jake hadn't disappeared fast enough. And now, the case was about to break wide open. With mounting evidence and a suspect vehicle identified, authorities moved quickly to locate Jake Pirelli. He was found just outside of Tampa, staying in a budget motel under a false name. When police entered the room, they discovered gloves, a burner phone, a large amount of cash, and a handgun wrapped in a towel. The serial number had been filed off, but ballistic testing would later confirm it was not the weapon used in Lanny Horwitz's murder. Still, Jake was arrested on multiple charges, and during interrogation, the final pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. At first, Jake denied everything. He claimed he had never been to Jupiter, had no idea who Lanny Horwitz was, and hadn't spoken to Donna Horwitz in years. But when confronted with traffic camera images, phone records, and the testimony of Maria Velasquez, his confidence broke. Faced with the likelihood of a life sentence, Jake agreed to a deal in exchange for a full confession. According to Jake, Donna had reached out to him months before the murder. She was desperate. She said Lanny had betrayed her, planned to cut her out of his will, and was threatening to expose something that would ruin her life. Jake admitted that Donna offered him $50,000 in cash to handle it. At first, he assumed it meant scaring Lanny, maybe a break-in or some stolen documents. But as their conversations continued, the message became clear: Donna wanted her ex-husband dead. She provided Jake with the alarm code, told him where to find the security system panel, and even described Lanny's nightly routine in detail. On the night of the murder, Jake slipped into the house through the back door just after 2 a.m. He wore gloves, a hoodie, and moved quietly. Lanny was asleep. Jake said he stood over him for nearly 5 minutes before pulling the trigger. He wiped the gun, left it beside Lanny's body to stage a suicide, and exited through the same door he entered. The entire job took less than an hour. But what Jake didn't know was the full extent of Donna's motivation. As detectives dug deeper into Lanny's financial records, they discovered a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. Donna had been embezzling money from one of Lanny's lesser-known shell companies. Over the span of 5 years, she had siphoned off nearly $300,000, hiding it in offshore accounts and fake vendor payments. Lanny had recently discovered the fraud and was preparing to turn her in. He had already met with an attorney and drafted the paperwork to press charges. This, more than the will, was the true catalyst for his murder. With Jake's confession, phone and financial records, and forensic evidence tying both him and Donna to the scene, the case against them was airtight. Donna was arrested without incident, her calm demeanor shattered as she was led away in handcuffs. In court, both were charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy, and financial crimes. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The murder of Lanny Horwitz sent shockwaves through the quiet community of Jupiter, Florida. What appeared at first to be a tragic suicide unraveled into a twisted web of greed, deception, and betrayal. Behind the polished walls of luxury and charm, a deadly plan had been carefully laid. And in the end, the truth came out, not with a whisper, but with the resounding echo of justice.